during a multi-sport event such as the Asian Games, where every country will generally send contingents which will sometimes, or more often than not many times, involve, let's say, 2 or 3 athletes competing in one particular discipline for at most maybe 3 medals. What can happen at times is that 2 or more athletes from the same country are in competition for medals, but if one ends up winning a medal and the other doesn't, what usually tends to happen is that the other person will wish them best, say that the better person won on the given day, and then let things go thereafter. However, that is not what has happened in the case of Indian athletes Swapna Barman and Nandini Agasara. Now, you would remember that Nandini Agasara had won a bronze medal in the women's heptathlon event that took place on Sunday, which is October 1st, but there was another Indian in competition at that particular event, and that was, of course, Swapna Barman. And unfortunately, she's kicked up a bit of a storm and stirred the hornet's nest, whichever metaphor you want to use here, they're all correct, by making a rather explosive claim against her compatriot, and then has doubled down on that. And we'll tell you what exactly she said and why exactly it is that is problematic in so many ways. And really, is it just a case of sour grapes? Does she have a legitimate gripe? That's what we'll explore in this video. But before we get into that, let's first talk about what exactly it is that was said by Swapna Barman. She took to Twitter to lash out, and while she didn't name Nandini Agasara, it was pretty evident who it is she was referring to, because on Twitter she said, "I've lost my Asian Games bronze medal to a transgender woman at the 19th Asian Games held in Hangzhou, China. I want my medal back as it is against the rules of our athletics. Help me and support me, please. Hashtag protest for fair play." Now, that, as I said, is a pretty explosive statement, and we'll delve into what exactly she said bit by bit. First, she said, "I have lost my Asian Games bronze medal to a transgender woman." Now, the bronze medal, as I said, was in fact won by Nandini Agasara, which makes it pretty clear who exactly she is referring to, even though she hasn't named Nandini anywhere in the tweet. The second part she says is that it is against the rules of our athletics. We'll get to that part later on. And the third part, protest for fair play. This really is where things get a little bit murky, but in case you're wondering why it is she's made those claims, because again, all of this does reek of sour grapes, but she did in fact actually speak to Sports Today and also tell us why it is she feels that Nandini Agasara is a transgender athlete who's not out in the open. Because normally what happens is, and you've seen it, that in the Olympics itself you've had transgender athletes compete. It is not against the rules within the Olympics. In fact, if they meet certain conditions, then trans athletes are allowed to compete. But the simple fact of the matter is there's no evidence as such, or there's nothing that is directly out in the open to prove that Nandini Agasara is in fact a trans athlete. What exactly did Swapna say to us though? Well, this is what she said. She said, "I have practiced for 13 years in this particular discipline," referring to, of course, the heptathlon. "You cannot outdo that with 4 months of practice." Now, it is worth noting that Nandini Agasara is in fact something of a late bloomer when it comes to this particular sport. But again, the idea that you cannot outdo this and therefore you're making an accusation that big, well, that is a bit problematic, and that is me putting things politely. But getting back to what I'd said that we would discuss in her tweet, where I said, it is against the rules of our athletics. This is where things get really murky, because there's no universal rule when it comes to the participation of trans athletes. Now, if you're looking at how it is that the World Athletics governing body governs it, well, they had in fact barred transgender athletes from competing in anything that was athletics in the Athletics World Championships and other events governed by World Athletics. So there's a complete blanket ban on transgender athletes. But in the Olympics, if you meet certain criteria, then you are in fact allowed to take part in the category of your choice, as long as, say for instance, if you are a male by birth but you ended up undergoing a sex change operation and then identify as female, as long as your testosterone levels meet a certain threshold, as long as they don't surpass that, then you are allowed to participate as a female, or it would be vice versa the case as well. So there is definite precedence for, let's say, this being done in the Olympics. So that's where things get a little murky, because is, if you're going by that logic, the Asian Games, well, it's governed by the Olympic Council of Asia. So you would assume that, assuming Nandini Barman is really a trans athlete, that it probably wouldn't be against the rules for her to actually be competing. But that's the thing. At this point, there is nothing to suggest that Nandini Agasara is in fact a trans athlete. And the simpler logic, or the simple explanation as of now, is that this is simply a case of Swapna Barman being a little bit of a poor loser. But again, we don't really know how it is that this is going to play out. What we do know is that it has kicked up quite the storm, because obviously a lot of people have reached out to Swapna to speak to her. We did too. And I think this is going to be one of those issues that doesn't quite die down. What it does do, however, is definitely not, let's say, paint the Indian contingent in a very good light, because it does show that there is definitely, and I understand there being a competitive edge of sorts, but should you have done this in public? Would it not have made more sense to raise this in private? And if you suspected this, then why is it that you didn't mention this to the concerned authorities before the Asian Games were held, that someone who you thought would have an advantage because she's a transgender athlete would be taking part in the women's heptathlon? Why was this not flagged before the Asian Games? It's not as if Nandini Agasara's participation was kept under wraps. We all knew the names of the athletes that were in fact going for the Asian Games. So definitely there are many things that do not add up, but I promise you this seems to be a story that will only develop as time goes on. But as of now, that is where things stand. You've got Swapna Barman, who missed out on a bronze medal by not really a massive margin when you look at it, claiming that the person who did win it, incidentally her own Indian teammate in Nandini Agasara, say that she's a transgender woman and she thus should not be allowed to participate. Again, as far as the rules for that being there, I'm pretty sure that even if Nandini Agasara was, an openly an out transgender woman, then it probably wouldn't be against the rules. But again, this entire situation just reeks of and will leave a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of people, because again, if you go by social media reactions, it has been very, very mixed. Most people are saying that she probably shouldn't be complaining. Others are rightfully pointing out why she didn't raise it before, while some are saying that if there is some merit to the allegations, then it should be investigated. As I said, it's one of those stories that doesn't seem like it's going to be going anywhere soon. So stay tuned to Sports Today. We'll bring you all of those updates, but if you have to do that, then you'll need to subscribe to the channel and tap the bell icon. That's how you'll know when we're going live or uploading a new video. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget, show us some love, like it, share it with your friends, leave us a comment. Also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the SportsTak app, and if you're already on the channel, go right ahead and check out some other videos that will be coming your way as well. Lots coming from the world of sport and the Asian Games from us. For now though, from my side, it's bye-bye.